Alright, today I'm going to show you how to get past the out of Codex usage limitation. I'm going to show you how to stop searching Reddit, stop looking at Tivo's posts, and trying to figure out when the next Codex reset's going to be. I'm also going to be giving away 1 free week of Claude Code to 3 people in this video. All you're going to have to do is leave a thumbs up, comment on the video, and then head over to the description and you'll find a link to a newsletter. Go ahead and sign up, and I'm going to select 3 random people to get Claude Code Pass for free.
If you're like me, you're somewhat of a power user of Codex, or really any of these AI coding tools. You use them constantly. Maybe you're using Codex, maybe you're using Claude Code, maybe you've got Grok, Kimi, GLM, DeepSeek, OpenRouter, whatever it is. You probably have access to more than one model, and chances are you're probably paying for more than one subscription too. And if you're a heavy user, there's one message that you absolutely hate seeing. You've hit your usage limit, because somehow it never happens when you're finished. It happens when you're halfway through something. You've got Codex working on a giant goal. Maybe it's fixing bugs, maybe it's building out a feature, maybe you're halfway through refactoring an application, polishing something, running tests, whatever it is. Everything is finally moving, and then usage limit reached. Now you're sitting there thinking, okay, how do I finish what I was just working on without giving somebody even more money? So what do? Maybe you start checking Reddit, maybe you start searching around to see if anybody else got reset. Maybe you're refreshing Tebow's X account like Tebow Buddy. You got another one of those Codex resets? Please, just one more reset. That's all I need. I've been there. And I'm not somebody who casually opens Codex once or twice a week. I've used almost 20 billion tokens through Codex. 20 billion tokens? So when I tell you that I burn through AI usage, I mean I burn through AI usage. I use this stuff on real projects constantly, and when one of these tools suddenly tells me I'm done for the next however many hours, that can legitimately interrupt something I'm trying to finish. But here's the thing. If you're already paying for ChatGPT and Claude and maybe Grok, and you've got access to Kimi, and you've got API credits somewhere else, why should running out on one of those services mean your entire coding workflow has to stop? And actually, before I get into what I'm showing you today, if you didn't see the video I posted yesterday, definitely go watch that one after this. Because right now I showed a way to use GLM 5.3 for free, and I also showed another way to get access to the newest DeepSeek v4 Flash and DeepSeek v4 Pro models. So think about that. You might already have your normal Codex usage, you might have Claude, you might have Grok, you might have Kimi. Now, maybe you've got free GLM 5.3 credits. Maybe you've got access to DeepSeek Flash or DeepSeek Pro. Maybe you're paying for something through OpenRouter. Maybe you've even got models running locally. And eventually, I started asking myself a really simple question. Why are all of these things sitting in separate boxes? Why does my Codex usage have to be my Codex usage? Why does Claude have to stay over here? Why does Grok have to stay over there? Why should I hit one usage limit and suddenly stop working when I've already got access to all this other AI sitting around? And that's where what I'm showing you today gets really interesting, because this is OpenCodex. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't get stuck on the name, because when I first saw OpenCodex, I thought this was basically going to be some little Codex wrapper. It's a lot more interesting than that. OpenCodex is a local proxy that can sit between coding clients like Codex and Claude Code and the actual AI provider handling the request. Its current documentation describes more than 40 built-in providers, including Anthropic, Google, xAI, Kimi, OpenRouter, DeepSeek, GLM, Olama, and others. In normal English, you can keep using the coding workflow you like while changing the brain behind it. That's the part I want you to understand. You can have Codex sitting right here, but maybe Claude is handling the request, or Grok, or Kimi, or DeepSeek, or GLM, or Gemini, or even a model you're running through Olama. And OpenCodex handles the translation in between. Codex normally communicates using OpenAI's Responses API. OpenCodex accepts that request locally, routes it to the provider you've selected in the format that provider expects, then translates the result back into a response. Codex understands. So visually think of it like this. Codex, then OpenCodex, then whatever model you want behind it. And that's why I said don't get stuck on the name, because this isn't really a video about some random tool called OpenCodex. It's a video about breaking apart the harness from the model. Those do not necessarily have to be the same thing anymore, and OpenCodex has actually taken that idea further than just Codex. The project currently supports Codex and Claude Code through the same local proxy, and its repository also documents integrations for other clients. So you start realizing, maybe I really like Codex as a harness, fine, use Codex. Maybe you love Claude Code's interface and workflow, fine, use Claude Code. But that doesn't automatically mean the company that made the harness has to be the only company providing the intelligence behind every single request. And that is the part I think is going to become increasingly important, because right now everybody is fighting to lock you into their ecosystem, their harness, their subscription, their model, their API, their usage limits, their little box. But if I'm already paying for 3 or 4 different AI services, I want to be able to actually use the resources I'm already paying for. And before we install anything, I want to actually walk through the documentation with you, because there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to do one of those videos where somebody finds a GitHub repo, copies one command into the terminal, and goes, unlimited Claude for free. This changes everything. That's not what this is. I want you to understand what we're putting on the computer, what it's changing, and what it actually does. So if we go through the OpenCodex documentation, they describe it as a local proxy. That means this is running on your machine. Codex sends the request to OpenCodex locally. OpenCodex figures out which provider and model you selected. It converts the request, the provider processes it, OpenCodex converts the response back, and Codex continues operating like Codex. That's why this is so cool. We aren't necessarily replacing the workflow, we're replacing or choosing the back end. Now let's look at the providers, because this is where things start getting kind of ridiculous. There are more than 40 built-in provider options, and the project also supports OpenAI compatible endpoints. The current list includes things like Anthropic, Google Gemini, xAI, Kimi, Azure OpenAI Ollama, DeepSeek, Grok, OpenRouter Together, Fireworks, Cerebrus, Mistral, Hugging Face, NVIDIA NIM, Minimax, Quen, and more. And authentication depends on what you're using. Some services can use an API key, some can use an OpenAI compatible endpoint. And OpenCodex currently documents OAuth login support for providers including xAI, Anthropic, and Kimi, while it can also forward your existing Codex or ChatGPT login. So again, this does not mean everything on this page is magically free. I want to make that extremely clear. If you're using a paid API, you're still paying that API. If your Claude account has usage limits, those limits still exist. If Grok has limits, those limits still exist. If something requires credits, you're still using those credits. What OpenCodex changes is that one limit doesn't necessarily have to be the end of your entire workflow. Maybe I burned through Codex, okay? I still have Claude. Maybe Claude is tapped out. Okay, maybe I've got Grok. Maybe I've got Kimi. Maybe I have those free GLM credits I showed you yesterday. Maybe I have DeepSeek access. Maybe I have something running locally. The point is, I've got options. And here's another thing that really matters. OpenCodex is public source code on GitHub and currently uses the MIT license. So if you're a developer and you don't like exactly how this works, you can inspect the code, fork it, modify it, and build your own version around your own workflow. That's why I keep telling you not to focus too much on the name. Don't think, oh, I don't use OpenCodex, so this doesn't matter to me. Look at the concept, look at the architecture, look at what people are starting to build. We're moving toward a world where your coding harness and your model don't necessarily have to be permanently glued together. And I love that. I don't want to buy another $20, $50, $100 subscription every single time somebody creates a slightly better coding interface. If I've already got compute, if I've already got access, if I've already got subscriptions, I want to decide how I use them. Now, let's actually get this thing installed. The current installation is pretty straightforward. You need Node 18 or newer, and the published npm package bundles the bun runtime automatically, so you don't need to separately install bun just to use the standard package. We're going to open the terminal and install it globally with min-pm install-g at bitkyc08/opencodex. Once that's installed, I'm going to start OpenCodex OCX start. That starts the proxy and gives us the web dashboard. Then I'm going to initialize the Codex integration OCX init, and now we can actually start configuring where we want our requests to go. The project documents OCX init as the interactive setup that writes its own configuration and wires Codex into the proxy. This is where you choose your provider. And again, yours does not have to match mine. Use whatever you actually have access to. If you already pay for Claude and you're comfortable connecting it, maybe that's what you use. If you've got xAI, maybe you try Grok. If you've got Kimi, use Kimi. If you've got an OpenRouter API key, that's another route. If you're running something locally, you can configure that. I'm going to use a provider I already have access to for this demonstration. And now look at this. We've got our provider, we've got our available models, we've got the routing. And this is where we stop talking about what it should be able to do and actually see whether it works. I'm going to open one of my real projects, not some hello world project that proves absolutely nothing. I'm going to give this something I would genuinely give Codex during a normal day. And I'm going to launch Codex. Select one of these routed models and give it a real task. Something like review this project, find one meaningful bug, usability problem, or architectural improvement, implement the fix completely, run the appropriate tests or build, resolve anything you break, and explain exactly what you changed. And now, let's see what happens. And there it goes. This is still the Codex workflow. I'm still inside the same project. I'm still using the interface I'm used to. But the intelligence actually working on this request is coming from the model I selected through that provider. That's the entire idea. Same harness, different brain. And once you've used almost 20 billion Codex tokens, you start appreciating something like this really quickly. Because now when I see you've hit your usage limit, my immediate reaction doesn't have to be, well, I guess I'm done working. My reaction can be, okay, what else do I have available? And that's a fundamentally different way of thinking about these subscriptions. Instead of Codex is one product, Claude is another product, Grok is another product, I'm starting to think these are pools of intelligence and compute that I already have access to. And I want to bring those resources into whatever workflow makes the most sense for what I'm doing. And OpenCodex goes even further than the basic setup I'm showing you here. The project documents provide a routing, multiple models, account pools, model combinations with failover or weighted routing, sub-agents, local providers, a web dashboard, diagnostics, and other advanced functionality. They even have what's called combos, where one virtual model can route across providers using failover or weighted round-robin strategies. And that's probably going to be another video, because imagine taking this idea further. You have several providers configured. One has an issue, one hits a limit, one goes down. And instead of your entire workflow collapsing, you've built your own routing system around the services you already use. Now we're getting into something really interesting. And don't get stuck on the name. This is bigger than, here's a neat Codex plugin. What you're really looking at is an abstraction layer between the tools we work in and the models doing the work. And as somebody who uses these tools constantly, I want more of this. I want competition at the model level. I want competition at the harness level. And I want the freedom to mix and match them. There are obviously a few things you need to understand before you go crazy with this. OpenCodex is an independent community maintained project. It isn't an official OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, or other provider product, and its maintainers explicitly warn that some providers may restrict third-party proxy usage. So before connecting an important account, read the provider's current terms and make your own decision about whether you're comfortable routing it this way. And once again, this isn't an unlimited AI exploit. You're not magically creating free tokens. You're not bypassing a provider's actual usage limits. You're routing work through resources you legitimately have available. Those are two very different things. And if you decide this isn't for you, the project also provides a clean way back out. Its documentation says OCX stop restores native Codex configuration, and there's also an uninstall path that removes the proxy components and restores Codex. So after almost 20 billion tokens of Codex usage, I think I'm qualified to say this, running out halfway through a goal sucks. And Tebow, I appreciate you, I appreciate every reset, but hopefully I can stop stalking your X account quite so much now, and if you didn't watch yesterday's video, definitely go watch that next. And once you understand what I just showed you with OpenCodex, you'll immediately understand why that video becomes even more interesting. We're basically building up a toolbox, different models, different providers, different access methods, and instead of being locked into one little box, we're figuring out how to actually use all of it together. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to keep hunting for on this channel. New AI models, free access, coding tools, ways to get more out of the subscriptions you're already paying for, and things that actually help you do something instead of just another video telling you that AI changed everything for the 50th time this week. So if that sounds useful, subscribe to Byte Forward. Go watch the GLM 5.3 and DeepSeek video next, and I'm going to keep digging into OpenCodex because I have a feeling there's a lot more we can do with this than what I showed you today. I'll see you in the next one.